Hi, and welcome to the Bites of Clarity podcast. My name is Camille, and today my guest is Maria del Gaiso.
Hi.
Hey, now, if you guys have followed the podcast for a while, you're going to notice that I've taken a long hiatus. I'm finally back, and I specifically wanted to kick off this new season because I came across Maria through my sister, and she wanted help with self publishing her book. And because I've self published a few times, I was like a consultant for her in that process. And her book was so inspirational for me as even just like an editor and a consultant that I wanted to share her message with my audience and anyone else who wants to listen. So thanks for being here today.
Super excited. I feel honored and I've been excited to do this. So,
Yeah.
yay.
Well, tell me like a little bit about how did your book come to be? Why did you, because lots of people, myself included, have lots of ideas for different books, but to actually take something from idea all the way to the end, that's something special. So tell me about like where this originated from within you and maybe a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, to keep it kind of concise, this was, and we'll share another conversation I had with God, but it was a really simple and bold conversation that God brought back a childhood dream and goal of wanting to write a book. So when I was a child, I always said, I want to publish. And so, growing up in the 80s, 90s, publishing seemed like a big thing. Like you'll do that when like and even in like my teens and 20s, it's like, to publish your book back then, you would watch all these movies and how like they will get like rejected by 20 publishers before they would. And I'm like, man, one day I'll have enough to say and maybe want to go down that path. But life does its thing, and these big dreams get replaced by being practical and moving on with practical dreams of
Yeah.
possibilities. And to a certain degree, got my education. I minored in English. I loved reading. I loved writing. I've been journaling since like consistently since I was 18. So I've had volumes of personal journals and just me expressing lots of things, thoughts. I mean, they've evolved from different types of journaling, but that dream was buried very deep. And I had not thought about writing a book for a very long time. Back in 2021, I was standing in my bedroom, and I don't know what the thoughts were before that, but I was maybe having a conversation with God in my mind, or I had prayed earlier. And he just brought to my attention, he literally said, Maria, you need to write a book. And I said, um, actually, let me take it back. He said, Maria, do you remember your dream about writing a book? He reminded me of my desire, my old desire of writing a book. And then I said, oh my goodness. I like said to him, I was like, wow, I can't believe I buried that so deep. I totally forgot that I've always wanted to write a book. I was actually astonished at the fact that I forgot that because it was such a huge thing like that I always wanted to do for so long. It just got so deeply buried. And so I like thanked him. I was like, oh my goodness, thank you. Like, Heavenly Father, you reminded me of that dream. So I was just super excited that I forgot about it and he reminded me. And then I go, yeah, yeah, for sure I'll write a book. Yeah, 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 I'm so excited. And I kind of left it like that. And then he goes, no, no, I need you to write right now. You need to start writing now. And I go, I do like it because he responds to that response in my mind. And I'm having this conversation in my head. And he literally just said, you need to start writing now. And I said, what? What about? And then so all these questions went, and I said, okay. I just said, okay. And then I closed the conversation with him and I moved on with my day. It's very short. And this is why I was inspired to go ahead and do it at a very like you have to hurry and do this now. So I just picked up my laptop and I said, I don't know, just start writing something.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. Just do
It
something.
doesn't matter. Yeah. And so I just started word by word, and then things started pouring. And I started the project that we finished together. I spent maybe 2, 3 months like brainstorming, writing notes on my phone, and then I felt blocked and I felt like I needed to take a break from it. I just didn't feel like there was something springing naturally from it anymore. I said, maybe this is not what he wants me to do. I was heading the wrong direction. So I dumped it and I started thinking of another idea. I'm like, what is it that he wants me to do? And then I spent months working on something else, which was sort of like, well, okay, maybe it's not my words like that he wants. Maybe I already have enough words. Why don't I look back in my journals and see what he's already told me.
Oh,
And so I
okay.
went and started looking at all my journals, and I just said, oh my goodness, maybe I should write a book about like how he has answered so many things to me, but that they can be applied to other people. Like these answers that I've gotten were very specific to me and specific to things that I needed a response to, but that they could be applied to others. So I
Those
started like,
journals were like a treasure vault, right?
yes, totally. Treasure Vault. Like now with the California fires, and we live in this state where we're in a matchbox. I just thought my daughter and I had the conversation, what would you take? What would I take? Is it nearby? And I said one of the first things are my journal. Of course, I feel like you were also, it wasn't a coincidence that I met you and other women that were self-publishing and in the writing world. And it gave me one of the first things you said, you can finish by summer. And I was like, maybe I'll get done in December, like in January of 2024. I said, I'll give myself December because I have no idea about this self-publishing process. And you're like, no, you can finish in July. So I was like, yes. Okay. I was like, cool. You really think so? And so having you really was a blessing, and it was something I treasured because, as you probably know, when you write, you're just like, I crumbled up papers figuratively because it was on my laptop, like wanted to throw my laptop across the room a million times and saying, this is not working. But God didn't let me. He just said, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah. So tell us the title of your book. Show us what it looks like.
Yeah. An ordinary girl's journey to self-love. And we subtitled Five Transformative Shifts to End the Inner War. And I really think this title was very inspired. We worked through some other options and things, but you agreed and I agreed. It felt right. I think it really summarizes the whole message of my personal experience with these shifts and like where I'm coming from with this topic that's well discussed, self-love, but I think it still has value in this perspective. And the five transformative shifts, which I think people love five, lists. They love like, okay.
Mhm.
And it was natural when I actually sat and listed like, what are these five things? They really came naturally to me.
So, is it fair to say that during this process, like you didn't have God told you to do something that you had never done before, and He
Mhm.
didn't like map out the whole thing for you in one moment where you had, oh, this is the how it's going to go. It was really just step by step. It feels like it was just like a little bit at a time. It's because
Yeah.
sometimes people will say, I don't want to get going unless I know what I'm doing, and I
Hmm.
say, oh no, 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 like it's really normal not to know more than a step or two ahead. Like just
Yeah.
tiptoe into what you know, like into just beginning, and then the way will illuminate itself. Sometimes people want to have so much surety before they begin something, and it's like that's not really the way to get stuff done because we're always
Yeah.
going to have like discomfort, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I learned lessons before this project to allow me to take it like that. And I call myself a recovering control freak. And so God taught me a lot of things to let go and to know that as you take steps, like the floor just kind of appears, if that makes sense. Like, take the steps, you can't see the whole bridge or the whole path, but as you walk it, it starts appearing, and this brick road or this bridge just starts coming into place. And so I've learned a few lessons before writing this book to know enough that it feels like that, and to also know that if I'm feeling very unsure and like scared or worried or fears and all these things, it's because I'm in the right place. So now I've like I did a lot of retraining in regards to these signals that we feel that normally people stop and they say, no, 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 you're feeling this because you are in the right place and it's going to take you somewhere where you have never been. Do you want to go to that place? Yes. And then so it's not without resistance because there's a natural, I think, process in our body to protect us. Our brain
Right.
is trying to protect us of the unknown and everything. So yeah, I took it day by day and I put no pressure. So the minute I spoke to myself and I said, you like writing, right? Fine, write. If nobody reads this, perfect. If never ends up being a project, who cares? So I started taking pressure off because I think when you put this pressure of like, I'm writing a book and
Yeah.
it's gonna do this,
Yeah.
and it was just like, just write. You already know God had to give you a clear answer because maybe you would have justified it and said later, later. He had
Hmm.
to tell you it needs to be done now. And he used those words. And I think that helped me.
I think I call it the here goes nothing approach. It's like, you know what? Let's just get going and see how this goes. We don't know. Let's
Yeah.
just go for it.
Yeah.
I want to hear about, so there's five shifts. I want to talk
Mhm.
about one of them specifically today, comparison. You talk
Mhm.
about comparison in such a refreshing way that when I was reading the manuscript the first time, I was like, oh, Like I wanted to get a highlighter out and like, yes,
Oh,
yes,
yay.
just so refreshing. So can
Yeah.
you share
Yeah.
with us your shift on comparison?
Yeah. I share a childhood experience when I was in middle school. If you read the book, that I think that the idea of comparison for me really originated from that experience of looking at someone and then realizing like she brought these feelings out, and what do I do with them? And is it what the world now is always says about comparison, like you either feel better about yourself or you feel worse. And I just felt like it was such a trite like explanation, because I'm like, I look at people all the time, and throughout all these years from my middle school years to like adulthood and all these years, I realized like, okay, I get that there's some validity in like saying it's you versus you, stay in your lane, and comparison you can negatively spiral down or you can spiral up. And I discussed the fact that when you look at someone, they're mirrors to you, because 90% of the people that we look at or around, we don't get to know very deeply. We know them in a certain surface levels. They're coworkers, they're church members in our community. We see them at the gym. We have passing kind of relationships. We don't make deep, deep relationships with everyone to know them well enough. However, there's people that come into our lives in those kind of surface interactions that do spark something in us, whether there was like a speaker at work or like a leader or something I've picked up, and I'm like, wow, like, I felt that in her presence. I felt this in his presence. And this can go both negative and positive. And I go in detail with the book about when you look at someone, the root word, right, is you're looking at when you say comparison, you're looking at your equal, right? You're not looking at someone that's above or below you. So when you compare, you're actually looking at someone that's right in the same level with you, in the sense of like as their humanity and as a person and a human being. So your self-worth and their self-worth is the same. They might be some steps ahead of something that they are going to open a door in your mind about possibility, something that attracts you, something that inspires something. And this can go negative or positive. Like you might come across someone that brings out these negative emotions, and we talk a lot about negative, like projection. You're projecting, and we always attribute projecting to something negative, but you can actually project in a positive way as well, because they're attributes that you haven't claimed for yourself, but that you see in someone else. And so they're windows. So if we stop looking and we just shame ourselves and say, don't look that way, like, okay, stop. Like, just no, why is that girl making you stop? Like, why is she doing something to you inside? What is it? Just like go, like, be curious and be like a neutral, like, observer. Don't judge yourself for wanting to know why. What is it about her? Is it what she's doing, how she's performing, her conversation, the way she walked in middle school? Was that girl just came with so much what I attributed as like confidence. And I felt like I was very self-conscious in middle school and lacked so much confidence. And people just commented about my body so much in middle school that when I saw her walk into a room and like own like who she was, I felt like she knew who she was. And as like a 12-year-old, I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I was like, she's sparking something.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to think like, okay, I can't physically look like her. It's not about looking like her. There's something else. So I said, there has to be more than just, oh man, I feel bad because I don't look like her and I don't have her clothes, or,
Right.
I'll never be like that. I'm like, what is it that she has? And I
Some
can.
intangible quality that
Yeah.
attracts you to her. Like, and it shows you what is possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's kind of a window to, if she has this, then that means I could have this too. If it's not about just the physical or the tangible, if it's something intangible, like it's kind of mysterious. How do
Yeah.
I get that thing, you know?
Yep. Exactly. So I think that's the majority of the things that we admire. Sometimes we can just simply admire, right? Sometimes it's a neutral observation. When I tell people, you see a lot of stimuli and you see people, and it could just be a neutral observation. It has nothing, no effect, positive or negative. You just view it, because imagine we don't have a reaction to every single thing that we see with our eyes, but we do zoom in on people in different time and periods, right? That they bring something out in us. So that's when we should get curious. That's when we should start asking questions. That's when we should stop realizing like we shouldn't take ourselves in a negative way, or maybe allow us to spiral up. Like, is she inspirational? What is it, the attribute? What is it that I feel like I want that she has? And that's okay to ask yourself. Like, stop,
Mm-hmm.
let's remove the shame from looking. Let's remove the shame about asking ourselves. Like, who cares? I
Mm-hmm.
can look at her and I can look at her 10,000 times and then ask myself, what is it that I want from that person? Like, that I can obtain. And so I just said, just chill out with it. Like, I think we shouldn't put such a negative thing from looking and wanting to look to our neighbors. And
Well, I mean, we're humans. We're kind of designed to do that, right?
yeah, exactly.
Tribal creatures, and we are naturally going to think, how do I measure up in this community? And there are people that are going to have certain skills or abilities or experiences that we haven't had. And so we're going to look up to them. And instead of thinking, oh my gosh, they're so much more advanced than I am here, it's
Mhm.
like, oh, if they got to that level, then I can too. How do I do it? Right.
Mhm.
Um, I think there's a lot to be gained by being curious, like you said, and allowing ourselves to acknowledge this person has something that I don't have. I wonder what it would take for me to get there. And maybe that's
Mhm.
a conversation you take to God.
Yeah.
Um, and before we close, because I think it'd be fun to have you back on to talk about other shifts, but I do want to include that conversation you had with God about saying, like, I want this. And he said to you, well, do you want this or do you want,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I want to go into that conversation a little
So,
bit.
yeah, I'm so glad he had this for me because it has helped me so many times throughout these last few years since he had that very clear and sort of happened like with my book. This was before I even started the project of my book. It was kind of a tumultuous time in my personal life. And I had to make decisions and there was a lot. And I think he knows when he has to interject so clearly. And he has done it before, even in my teenage years. I've had very marked conversations where he has to just speak to me like that because he just knows, Maria just knows, but it will never leave my memory. And he basically said, Maria, you can have what you want or you can have more. So he said that it was a question and I knew he was asking. And I said, I want more. I responded in my mind. And then he responded immediately. He said, I am more. And that was it. That was our conversation. And it was left a deep mark in my heart. He wrote that deeply in my heart. And I've used it a lot of times and now actually, I think I've made a really important realization with that, being such a controlling freak. I would say a controlling person before. Like, I needed to make sure I knew the end. If I got into something, that's how I was before. And I think it was anxiety. It was just controlling the outcome. And so I made sure that, like, if I do this, I will get this result. If I do this, I will get this result. I was that type of person. And him telling me that allows me to trust him in surrendering. And that's something that I've kind of circled back now and said, oh, he wanted to teach me the power of surrendering and knowing that with me, he's saying, you're okay. You got this. And like what you think you want is I want what you want. Doesn't mean that we have different wills. Just when you walk with me, you'll see the way I can flourish this, what you think that you can do. So I think that was that beautiful conversation of just when we walk with him, we're limited. He's not. So
Mhm.
going to guide me to what will bring me the greatest joy. And we sometimes think like his will is like sacrificing our will, when in reality, that's not it, because he wants our joy and happiness. And when we are in the right frame of mind and in the right path that will um, honor our authentic selves and our true deep desires, his will is actually our will and our will is his will. So we're not relinquishing anything. We're just getting aligned to who he knows what will bring the greatest and deepest joy.
Yeah,
So he was telling me, just let go.
that's beautiful. And there's so many spin-off conversations we could have with that. But let people know where they can find you online and where they can find your book, like how can they
Yeah.
connect with you? And also Maria does do coaching to help people with mindset because that's what her book is all about. So tell us how people can find you.
Yeah, I think I'm the most active right now in Instagram. So definitely look for me there. You can message me and we can have discussions. I do post things about my book right now. I am into fitness a lot, so you'll see my account still has heavy fitness, but I am kind of blending these shifts with fitness because they were a big influence too on all the women that I coached and how important these shifts have been. My book you can find on Amazon, Maria del Gaiso, An Ordinary Girl's Journey to Self-Love. And you can do a digital copy or an actual physical copy and get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on here today
Absolutely.
and sharing that shift. I think it's so encouraging to realize that we're put on this planet around lots of people with different skills and abilities so that we can start with, like it's like we're a canvas and we can decide, I really like that color fuchsia. She's rocking that. I'm going to add a little bit of that to my canvas. And he's
Mhm.
really good at like those, like neutral tones. Just whatever like sparks our creativity and imagination. We're put here to be inspired by other people, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So, anyway, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Camille.
Bye.